I'm Eve Newhouse. I'm a writer and blogger currently living in the south of France, a longtime practitioner of Kriya Yoga, a graduate of the Mythological Studies program at Pacifica Graduate Institute, and a hardcore old hippie. I studied yoga and cosmology with Ganesh Baba in the late 70s and the early 80s, and sacred geometry and archetypal astrology with Alice O. Howell in the aughts. The presentation you're about to see was originally prepared for a group at All Faith Seminary in New York, which led to a second, slightly altered iteration to an extended group of friends all over the world. When the recording for the second group failed, I created this third, again slightly altered version. A large part of it is an explanation of a diagram that my teacher, Ganesh Baba, drew for me on a napkin in a diner in Watkins Glen, New York. I've been thinking about that diagram for 45 years. When I gave the people at All Faiths the title of my presentation, I'd recently written some blog posts about everyday magic and synchronicity. I had some good stories to tell about the way magic shows up in everyday life. By the time I came to write a description of the talk, I was more focused on the world falling apart around us. Thus, the butterfly story, which has given me comfort for years, found its way into the talk. I want to apologize to the butterfly story's originator, Nori Huddle, for the misattribution in my original description. Her story is my favorite metaphor for these times. This is the cover of a children's book she wrote to tell it. In the story, the caterpillar eats and eats and eats until one day it stops, hangs upside down from a twig, and sheds its skin, revealing a shiny chrysalis. Inside the chrysalis, DNA starts to activate in some of the caterpillar's cells. These special cells, which are called imaginal discs, carry the information needed to build the butterfly. One carries the image of a wing, another a leg. The rest of the caterpillar's cells do not welcome the newcomers. They think the imaginal discs are invaders, foreigners, trying to take over their territory, so they shoot poison at them. For the scientists among you, a less anthropomorphic way of saying that is that the caterpillar releases enzymes to dissolve its own tissues. Either way, there comes a time when the caterpillar is nothing but soup. It seems we humans are well on our way to becoming soup, but maybe, like the crawling butterfly like the crawling caterpillar who becomes a butterfly, we're moving from the 3D world into a higher dimensional one. Maybe we're learning to fly. The path that led to the original talk began last summer when I made a comment to a friend who was discouraged about the state of the world. I tried to cheer him up with the idea that maybe we're transitioning from the third to the fourth and fifth dimensions. After I said it, I started thinking about what it actually means, and that took me back to the diagram Ganesh Baba drew on a napkin. Ganesh Baba, as we affectionately called him, or Sri Mahant Swami Ganeshananda, was already in his 80s or 90s when he was brought to the US from India by his students, Roxanne and Jayant Gupta, for eye surgery. He visited them in the Finger Lakes area where I lived at the time for 3 days on his way to California, where the operation was scheduled to occur. On the second day of his visit, when this picture was taken, I went along with Roxanne and Jayant, who were taking him on a tour of the area. I sat in the back of the car with Baba, but I didn't see much of the scenery. He believed, that this would be the only time we had together. So he spent the ride pounding his cosmology into my head with ferocious intensity. This is the diagram. I don't have the original napkin anymore. I made this version on a computer in the 1990s. Don't try to bother reading it now. I'm going to break it down in a minute. But this is essentially what he drew for me as we sat in that diner waiting for our grilled cheese sandwiches. At one point, he looked at me very sternly and said, "This is your work. It's your responsibility to understand and pass this on." In retrospect, I think he probably said that to all his students, but it had a huge impact on me. Whenever he shared the diagram, Baba asked anyone seeing it this question. His diagram is a grand unified field theory that fits on a napkin. It's meant to include everything in the cosmos, literally everything. Baba ended up being in my life for 3 years, not 3 days. And in that time, he had me draw it over and over, and I heard him expound on many, many versions of it, many aspects of it, many, many times. And it became the lens through which I have seen life ever since. This is my current understanding of it. Consciousness precedes existence. This is the first premise, and it turns the current worldview of mechanistic materialism upside down. Ever since Descartes, Western thinking has considered the measurable material world as the ground of existence. It's the dominant worldview, the air we breathe. Belief systems that came before that, and most indigenous cultures to this day, see spirit or God or cosmic consciousness as the basis from which everything else is built. But now, mechanistic materialism, in which consciousness isn't part of science at all or is the hard problem, is slowly giving way to other worldviews. Here are a few of them. Pantheism. Spinoza, Goethe, and Thoreau were pantheists. Pantheists believe the whole universe is God, but God is immanent, not transcendent. Panentheists like Karl Kraus, David Steindl-Rast, and my own teacher, Alice O'Howell, believe that the universal spirit is present everywhere and at the same time transcends all things. A more recent entry on the scene is panpsychism, promoted by the Italian-American physicist Federico Fagan, Philip Goff, and others. It says that there's a little bit of consciousness in atoms, more in molecules, more in cells, more in animals, and the most in humans, but not in rocks or tables, etc. Finally, idealism is becoming popular again. Rupert Sheldrake's explanation of idealism is very simple. Matter is dumbed down mind, he says. Its proponents include Plato, Immanuel Kant, and the Dutch philosopher Bernardo Kastrup. In addition, many contemporary thinkers propose comparable theories. David Bohm, Amit Goswami, Nigel Calder, John Briggs and David Peat, Dean Radin, Brian Greene, and others. Ganesh Baba thought it was particularly important for his students to understand the numerology of creation. It's a simple octave pattern, he explained. So, first, only cosmic, undivided, capital C consciousness exists. But consciousness is awareness, so eventually it becomes aware of itself, and thus becomes two. 1 + 1 = 2. Duality emerges. When the 1 becomes 2, 2 exist. And with the whole, there are 3. 2 + 1 = 3. Trinity emerges. Threeness is mysterious because it's liminal. It's slippery. 3 is neither or it's all. Or it's all or neither all at once. 3 represents creativity. Egg plus sperm equals child only when the ineffable spirit we call life appears on the scene. Threeness is the mystery at the middle. The two reflect each other and become 4. 2 squared equals 4. The 4 reflect each other and become 8. 2 cubed equals 8. And the 8 replicate ad infinitum. Eight times 8 times 8 ad infinitum. Keep in mind that this is a multi-dimensional process. It's iterating in all directions, infinitely larger, infinitely smaller, constantly. Here it is again. And here's something I learned after I created the slideshow for my first presentation. This is how the cells divide in the first week of pregnancy. Fertilization, the 2-cell stage, the 4-cell stage, and the 8-cell stage, leading to the morula and then the blastocysts. 1, 2, 4, 8 ad infinitum. The octave manifests in our subtle bodies as the chakras. And as the notes, and as the notes of the scale and the colors of the rainbow. So, in all of its infinite intricacy, and delightful diversity, the world is created from 8 levels of consciousness, or so Baba believed. Once created, matter evolves back into consciousness. Ganesh Baba studied physics in the 1920s at the birth of quantum mechanics. He combined the contemporary understandings of the time with ancient Indian philosophy to come up with his theory. There are any number of similar theories now, but when Baba conceived and taught the cycle of synthesis, it was unique, particularly in its comprehensiveness. Perhaps it still is. Baba's diagram breaks down his theory further. He proposed 4 fields, all acting on the same principles. For example, the iron filings in this picture are affected by the field produced by the magnet. The gravitational field is why we have weight. Like the iron filings being attracted by the poles of the magnet, things on Earth are attracted to the center of the field of gravity. Baba suggests that in addition to the known fields, the inertio-gravitational and the electromagnetic, there are 2 more fields, the biopsychic, which acts on the mind and life, and the intello-conscious, which is very subtle indeed. He also proposes 8 Kantian categories, a scale of existence, you could say. Immanuel Kant used the term categories to describe basic forms of human thought, a priori concepts, that allow us to organize and interpret our experiences. It's easiest to understand Baba's list from the most concrete to the most abstract. Matter, energy, time, space, time, life, mind, intelligence, consciousness. In the process of creation, the sequence goes the other way around. When consciousness, that is capital C, cosmic consciousness, becomes self-aware, intelligence is created. Baba spoke of intelligence as the template for all other creation. It can be recognized as form or structure, shape, pattern, or archetype. Vedanta speaks of names and forms. Terence McKenna uses the example of sand dunes to illustrate what capital I intelligence is. In sand dunes, the waves in the sand are created by the wind, by waves of air. The waves in the air would be just air without the form of a wave. Thus, the form is the most subtle manifestation. The wind is denser, and the sand is the most dense. The subtlest manifestation creates the most dense. Mind is the next denser form of consciousness to come into existence. Mind can be understood as the Greek concept psyche, which is often translated as soul or small c consciousness. It encompasses imagination, thought, conception, memory, desire, lowercase a awareness, understanding, and knowledge. Life comes into existence once mind is there. It is the quickening, lowercase c creation, the coming together of the opposites to create something new. Baba said, life is the glue that holds things together. Once you have life, you have death. So time comes into existence. Time creates movement, so there is space. And now we are in the space-time continuum, Einstein's realm, in which our daily lives unfold. The cycle of synthesis continues on the other side of the diagram with evolution. As in panpsychism, Baba believed that all self-organizing entities are conscious. In fact, it's consciousness itself that is evolving back into its essential form. He places Darwinian evolution on the other side of the cycle of synthesis. The addition of yogi on the list is his own. Baba's theory aligns with grand psychotheories from many cultures. We are at a major transition point in every one of these. The Yuga cycle is an ancient Indian understanding of the orbit of our solar system around the center of the universe. It proposes 4 epochs of 24,000 years each. Consciousness shifts its focus in the yugas as they move away from the center. During Satya Yugas, consciousness is the most subtle, and the world is perceived through a spiritual lens. In Treta Yugas, the lens is mental. In Dwapara Yugas, the world is perceived as energy, and in Kali Yugas, it is material. I like this diagram because you can see the yugas spiraling around it, upward. In it, we are coming out of a Kali Yuga, which Baba used to say bottomed out in the Dark Ages, and coming into a Dwapara Yuga, which is an energy age. This coincides nicely with the precession of the equinoxes in astronomy and astrology, in which we are coming into the Aquarian age. The symbol of Aquarius is a set of waves which indicate energy. I'm not going to explain any of these further. The point is that they all coincide. The timing is the same in the Aztec calendar. And in the 4 worlds, the 4 worlds, the Hopi tell. The 4 world story the Hopis tell. They all place capital P people at a major shift right now. They all suggest that small c consciousness is evolving into a more subtle understanding, a higher dimension. This aligns with Baba's understanding. He associated the dimensions with the Kantian categories. Thus, the first dimension is matter, the second is energy, the third is space, the fourth is time, life is the fifth, mind is the sixth, intelligence is the sixth, and the 8th dimension is consciousness itself, hence the numerology, 8 ad infinitum. Let's take a look at what we know about dimensions. In a drawing of the dimensions that we're familiar with, there are 3 dimensions: the X, the Y, and the Z axes. A point has no dimension. Once the point moves, there is a line. A line has 1 dimension, the X-axis. When you move into the Y-axis, you get a square. It's flat. It has 2 dimensions, the X and the Y axes. You can draw it, but you can't pick it up. you need a third dimension to do that. 3 dimensions come off the paper. The world of ordinary perception is a 3-dimensional world. So, what might evolving into a higher dimensional world entail? Einstein understood the 4th dimension as time. It's part of his theory of relativity, which combines space and time into a continuum. He posits that an accurate description of an event also requires knowing when it occurred. It's complex. Imagining dimensions beyond the 4th seems impossible. Baba suggested that they exist in the biopsychic and in teleconscious fields. Shifting from one dimension to another is like going through a Mobius twist. Remember making Mobius strips in math? The outside becomes the inside and the other way around? During a grand shift, as consciousness evolves, our old worldview is turned upside down. The gentle God of nature becomes the devil. For eons, everything was conscious. Since the scientific revolution, only humans have believed to be conscious. As the transition that all the grand cycle theories predict take place, there's a period when both the old and the new exist simultaneously, a liminal zone, a period where the old stories don't hold water anymore and the new understanding isn't clear yet. There are lots of ways to describe the 2 worlds in which we exist now, beginning with our understanding of time. The waves represent the liminal zone, where the dimensions overlap, like where the beach meets the ocean. Baba placed time at the center of his diagram, partly in the ineffable world, and partly in the material world. The Greeks used 2 words for time, kairos and chronos, to distinguish between eternity and temporality. We live in both. Baba spoke of Einstein and Jung as the great explorers of the 2 realms of our existence. This is an interesting slide. It's the last one I added to the first version of this presentation because on the morning I gave the talk, at 4:30 in the morning, when I apparently have important dreams, I dreamed that I was creating an animation illustrating the idea of Schrodinger's cat, who exists simultaneously in 2 states in the box. Whether the cat is alive or dead in the box can only be determined by observation, which leads to quantum entanglement theory, which, as it turns out, is very relevant to what I'm trying to say here. I'm profoundly grateful for the channel to other realms that dreams can offer us. To return to other examples of how the worlds we're straddling can be described, David Bohm called them the implicate and explicate orders. Rick Levine, master astrologer, referred to Neptunian and Saturnian understandings. Ian McGilchrist of the right and left brain. One can divide the 2 worldviews between interconnectedness and separateness, metaphysics and physics, the indigenous and Western worldviews. You can speak of things that are measurable and things that are not measurable, of the imaginary and the real, or of dimensions in which magic exists and those in which it doesn't. I believe our world is going through the Mobius twists between those worlds. The dominant worldview is turning upside down. The caterpillar is becoming the soup. We stand to lose a lot, yet we really do have the potential to become butterflies. We can move into a world where magic exists. When I had created this much of my first iteration of the presentation, my muse left me. That night, I went through my current ritual: meditation, a mental list of what I'm grateful for, blessings to family and friends, and asking for a dream to guide me to whatever comes next. The following night, I dreamed that someone was knocking at the door at 4:30 in the morning. I didn't want to get up, but the knocking continued, so I dragged myself downstairs to see who was at the door. It was the UPS man, a stock character in my dreams. He handed me a soft package wrapped in white paper, beautifully tied up with string. When I opened it, I found a lovely fairy godmother costume, complete with a wand and elegant folding wings. Obviously, it had come from my mentor, Alice O. Howell. She often used the fairy godmother archetype to describe herself. I was excited and encouraged by the dream. Though it really was 4:30 in the morning, I got up to meditate. It was a long meditation, 45 minutes or an hour. A vision came to me in the meditation. I was going up a broad staircase wearing my fairy godmother outfit. My magic wand seemed to be in my back, the star at its end in my head, or on my head, or both. On either side of me, people were streaming down the stairs. I realized that I could take the wand and reach out and touch them. The light in my head grew. I wasn't touching everybody, just random people here and there. It was like passing a flame. The light in my head was lighting up the lights in their heads. It was pretty intense. When I came out of the meditation and began to describe my vision in my journal, I recognized an element in the dream, the staircase, that's reminiscent of a series of dreams that I've had since childhood. They all contain a hill of some kind, with the spiral pathway or staircase going up it. Over the years, I've had recurring dreams taking place all around and up this spiral form. My mother is a regular character in them. When I was a child, they were nightmares. In one recurring dream, I'm climbing up a pyramid, holding her hand, going around and around it on a path that's narrower and narrower, and eventually crumbles under my feet. My mother can't stop me from falling. It was so frightening that for a while, even into my adult life, I was afraid of heights. Every so often, I reached the top. Once my mother pulled me up, offering her hand like God offers his hand to Adam in Michelangelo's fresco on the ceiling on the top of the Sistine Chapel. The hill and the path take many forms. Once I dragged 2 suitcases all the way to the top and over a series of cow barriers. I couldn't find a picture of the kind of cow barrier in the dream. They're often made of wood, but this was a stone one. Anyway, it was very hard to get those suitcases through it. When I finally got them both through the barrier, I found the UPS man waiting for me at a desk. "You can't come here with those," he told me very severely. "Take them back down." So I did. Sometimes the form takes the shape of a spiral staircase. I have dozens of these dreams written down in years of journals. I wrote a paper about them in a dream class I took at Pacifica. I shouldn't have been surprised then when I realized that in choosing our current house in Court-sur-Ciel, France, I was moving into my dream imagery. Here's a poster commemorating Cord's 800th anniversary in 2022. These are images of the shadow side of the form. The first, a rendering of Cord by Jean-Pierre Desruelles, a local artist. The second, Bruegel's Tower of Babel. The ascending spiral also echoes the classic illustration of Kundalini. In Indian thought, Kundalini is a form of divine feminine energy, or Shakti, located in the base of the spine, which, when awakened through tantric practice, leads to spiritual liberation. Baba told us that the spine was like an antenna. When properly aligned and tuned, it downloads information from higher dimensions. Baba set the spine in the middle of his diagram with the two snakes, or energy channels, the Ida and the Pingala, winding around the formless Sushumna and looking a lot like DNA. The story of the dream and the vision shows how synchronicity operates in a liminal zone, represented here by waves. In Baba's diagram, the liminal zone we are now in fades in halfway through the third dimension and fades out halfway through the fifth. Synchronicity comes by grace. You can't make it happen. It just happens. The subtler representation, the meaning, precedes the event. Here's another example. The day the fairy godmother came to me seemed like a good day to go to Emmaüs, the second-hand store. The Emmaüs in Carmaux, a small town about a 20-minute drive from where we live, is consistently magical. I often write about it in my blog. That day, my husband Tom went with me. I found a charming cookie tin, but nothing that I really needed. Then I checked the back of the back building, and I found a carpet to put under Tom's piano in the shop. I'd been checking to see if there was one that would work for months. It was the only carpet there that day. He bought it. It was a good bargain at €5. It's a perfect fit. A gift from the fairy godmother, to be certain. Even more astounding is what Tom found on his own. It's a chocolate fountain. Some of you know that Tom has a chocolate shop here in Cord, and that we had one in California too, with a bigger chocolate fountain that was very popular. The melted chocolate flows down these tiers, and you dip fresh fruit into it. Chocolate fountains work on the principle of the Archimedean screw. There's that spiral again. The more time you spend in the higher realms of consciousness, the more synchronicity leaks into your daily life. Symbols function in the liminal zone too, but they work the other way around. Symbols, metaphors, and stories can carry you up through the liminal zone to higher, more subtle understandings. When I was doing graduate work at Pacifica Graduate Institute in Santa Barbara in the aughts, people spoke of living a symbolic life. I think it's a very good idea. Emmaüs is full of symbols. Every object has so many stories to tell. This poster here reads, "I am convinced buying things that have a history is definitely valuable." Not long ago, after making 2 regrettable mistakes the same morning, I found this brass monkey standing on a crocodile at Emmaüs. "Quel trésor vous avez trouvé," cried the guardian of the kitchen and knick-knack department. She was right. It is a treasure. When I got home, I looked up the story of the monkey and the crocodile. It's an Indian teaching story. In it, the monkey is living happily in a jamun fruit tree near the river. One day, a crocodile comes by, and the monkey, being a generous fellow, offers him some of the jamun fruit. The two become great friends. Later, the crocodile mentions the delicious fruit to his wife. "Ooh, I would like some of that sweet fruit," says the wife, "but even sweeter would be the heart of the monkey who eats it every day." She tells her husband that she will die if she can't eat the heart of the monkey. So the crocodile goes to the monkey and invites him to dinner. His plan is to drown the monkey on the way across the river and to give his wife the monkey's heart. But halfway across the river, the monkey realizes what's happening and questions the crocodile, who confesses. "Oh," the monkey says to the crocodile, "you should have told me sooner. I keep my heart in a hole in my tree. We'll have to go back to get it." So the crocodile returns the monkey to his tree safely. I don't think they were friends after that. The moral of the story is everybody makes mistakes, but even in very dangerous situations, quick thinking and action can save you. The monkey on the crocodile's back brought me exactly the wisdom I needed at that moment. Symbols, metaphors, and stories transcend time. They take you to where magic exists. In the butterfly story, the imaginal discs overcome the caterpillar's poison by forming a unit. Each disc carries a vision of the part of the butterfly's body it will form. The discs resonate together at the same frequency, passing information from one to another. Eventually, they draw together, first in small clumps and then as one, to form the new creature. It takes time. And at the heart of this whole grand theory is the heart. The heart exists at the center of both worlds. Our physical hearts ticking away to measure our time here on earth, while simultaneously symbolizing love, the deepest sense of connection, mother love, romantic love, love of life, love of nature, love of God, universal, capital L, love. We need to love each other in these times of upheaval. We humans need to clump together and resonate at the same frequency. We have a vision too. It's the one mystics and meditators glimpse, the one a powerful psychedelic trip brings, the one mountain climbers, musicians, and monks seek. It's that profound sense of oneness that underlies all manifestation. Dr. Bronner got it. The small print on the label of Dr. Bronner's magic soap was always about oneness. I love this one, except for the reference to the Father, which seems a little old-fashioned to me. Listen, children, eternal Father, eternally one, for on God's spaceship Earth, with bomb and gun, we're all one or none, all one. The hippies got it. We hippies weren't much interested in measurable values. That didn't work out so well for all of us, but our little group was lucky. There came a time when Ganesh Baba sent us all back to school. You can't remain hapless hippies indefinitely, he told us. So Judy and I became teachers. I did a master's degree in education, focused on the genesis of creativity. Keith went to medical school and became a psychiatrist. Several of us became yoga teachers. Roxanne did a PhD in comparative religion. Danny became a physical therapist. We all rejoined the workaday world, carrying Baba's teaching in our hearts. As Baba told me again and again, attention is the key. Carolyn Myss tells us that our most powerful tool is choice. She's right. Untether your imagination. Let's resonate as one. Let's learn to fly. The beginning.